If Batman doesn't return soon...
I know. We all need to take off the mask sometimes. To remind ourselves that we're people underneath.
Dick Grayson.
These videos are not for children. If you're a children, then piss off.
Hey there, it's me, your least favorite YouTuber, the Infuso. And another day, another Batman video I've never seen. And that's why today, we're here to talk about the next in this lineup, Batman Bad Blood. Now, for the most part, I've pretty much enjoyed all of this animated universe's Batman offerings. They just seem to get better and better with each new installment. And I'm really curious to see if this movie can follow up on that. And let me answer my own question immediately. Yeah, it does. This movie definitely follows up on the last one. Not only in terms of quality, but even in terms of story threads. When Batman goes toe-to-toe with the Heretic, he's immediately reminded of his drug-induced nightmare of a twisted Damian Wayne from the future. And for good reason. Because the Heretic is in fact Damian Wayne. Kind of. He's basically an enhanced, age-advanced clone of Damian, who sort of embodies Batman's greatest fear, as well as Damian's own self-doubt. This dark Damian Wayne physically manifests what Damian buried deep inside, and what can only be described as a worst-case scenario for Batman. This version of the character was pretty much prophesized with the last two movies, and it's because of things like that within these movies that make me feel like this line of Batman films completed a narrative. Each completed their own narrative while still serving to create a greater narrative. This movie trilogy works so great because it seems like they had a working blueprint from the start. They had a vision and direction in mind before they put these together. And each movie seems like it's all been building up to this. Individually, these movies complete their own stories. But when watched side by side, they almost feel more like chapters in the same story. Unfortunately, the character is taken out of the equation pretty unceremoniously, which kind of diminishes the character as a whole, but on the other hand, it was a pretty shocking twist that ultimately adds to the careless and remorseless nature of Talia al Ghul, showing her as the ultimate unpredictable bad, lacking all compassion, empathy, and, well, humanity. It's a move that does help raise the stakes, and it keeps the viewer guessing. And it also proves to Damian just how expendable he is in his mother's eyes. For the first time ever, he understands how his mother sees him. And it's not as a son. It's as a henchman. Someone disposable. The love that he has for her is unrequited. Because all he is a League of Assassins project. One that she probably at this stage in life looks at as a failure. So there are some positives to come out of this. But it does feel like a little bit of a waste when the character only gets one meeting with Batman, a separate meeting with his younger self, and then he's slain. There was so much more that you could have done with this character. His arrival in this universe should drum up the same amount of discussion that was had when Damian arrived. When Damian entered everyone's lives, it changed dynamics. A new character had to factor into things. But here, Heretic isn't necessarily treated like a full-fledged character. Instead, he's more of a meaningless plot point. Because there's so many different creative things that could have been done, and now they're all just missed opportunities. Maybe seeing an adult Damian turn to the dark side would make Batman reconsider and question their partnership. Wonder what kind of influence he has on his son's life. And if this version of the character is really just predestined. Maybe he'd worry that the premonitions he once had were physically manifesting, and that Damian's betrayal was inevitable. Or hell, maybe you go the other route. Maybe Damian meets his older self and he too shares his father's fears. Maybe he doubts and questions himself until ultimately realizing that while the two are very much alike, they're not entirely the same. He'd come to realize that their differences make all the difference. Maybe you have old Damian trying to reach out and mentor young Damian. Maybe young Damian could defeat his older self. And their fight could be symbolic of the inner struggles that this character goes through. Who he is now facing who he used to be. I'm sorry, but there are just a lot of interesting routes this could have taken, and it just didn't. And that's a little disappointing. But to be fair, that is the first time that I'm disappointed by this series, so, they're doing good so far. And even with this potential negative, there is positive to come from it, so it's not an all-around L. It's like half an L. It's like a lowercase L. The movie really begins with a bang, but more accurately, a battle. It takes no time in delivering fast-paced action and fight scenes. And it also doesn't take its time in bringing in brand new characters to the mythos. Mid-battle, we're thrust into the plot, with Gotham City trying to survive in the wake of Batman's sudden absence. And I gotta say, watching a Batman project sans Batman just makes me feel like I'm watching a CW show. Except, better. Although, truthfully, I've always been fond of these types of stories to some degree. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Batman, but with the bat away, the family comes out to play. With Bruce gone, it gives so much more time and chance for other major characters to step it up. And here's no exception. We get to see a lot more of the characters fans know and love. I mean, what I really appreciate is that Nightwing plays a much bigger part here than he has previously in any of the other Batman films. With more importance comes more screen time, and with more screen time comes a more accurate portrayal of the character. And yeah, this is a pretty good performance. And due to this movie, I think it actually might be one of my new favorite Nightwing performances. I think Dick Grayson in this movie is really interesting, because he comes off as confident and cocky to a fault, yet serious and mature. It's like the guy knows that there's a time and place. He's still very much himself, but he's also fairly capable of donning the cape and cowl as well, even if I don't think that he should. But that's not a conversation for here, that's a conversation for an upcoming video. Bad Blood introduces the audience to two new members of the Bat family, that being Batwoman and Batwing. We don't get to know them intimately immediately. I mean, in Batwoman's case, she's brought in at the very start with very little explanation. The movie just goes,
"Look, it's me. I'm here. Deal with it. Let's move on."
As the plot develops, it's revealed that Batman kept a file on her, one that confirmed her identity as his cousin, Kate Kane. The file also reveals that Batman was unsure if he was going to take her in as a sidekick or take her down. In the case of Batwing, the movie kinda serves as his own origin story. This plotline doesn't take up too much screen time, but it's afforded just enough time to establish both the character and his motivations. Which is nice, because I always thought that Batwing was one of the most underrated characters in the Bat family. He's got some of the coolest looking gear in all of Gotham City, and it has advanced functions that would actually be useful. The only downside to the character is that he shares his superhero name with the name of Batman's jet.
Hey, Batwing. Need a ride in the Batwing?
Very funny.
I like both these characters, and I think that they were done justice here, but also done an injustice here. Both the characters were accurate portrayals, and they were performed very well, but I also feel like I could have used a little bit more time with each of them. It would have been nice to have them just a little bit more developed, and see them interact with the team a little bit more than they did. Regardless, I still enjoy it for what it was. Could have used more of these characters. Even if I think they're both hypocrites. Batwoman's constantly talking about not following Bruce's rules and not doing things the Bat family way and that she does her own thing. It's like, dude, that's totally cool. You want to live by your own moral code? You do you. That makes sense to me. But don't strap on the bat emblem and then put on your little pointy ears and then act like you're not just copying off of what they're doing. If you want to be a part of the team, you gotta be a team player. Like, I get that she's saying that she wants to do her own thing, but I don't know, don't you think it's a little bit too late to do that? There's no copyright on crime fighting, but there probably should be. Bruce, maybe it's time to consult the lawyers. And Batwing is every bit as bad, because Batwing is out here pissed off at the Bat family, blaming them for what's happening to his father. He still creates a mech suit that resembles that of a bat? I don't know, it just seems contradictory. But other than that little rant, I like these characters very much. And they're not the only ones. Mad Hatter gets to show off his skills while also showcasing his strangeness. They even bring Renee Montoya into the fold for a little bit. She doesn't do a lot, but it's nice to see her. We even get to see that Alfred still ain't afraid to throw down. I will never tire of seeing this butler go around to fisticuffs, or just straight up acting like he's Arn Anderson and pulling the Glock out whenever he can. But what I really, really like about this movie is that it truly does feel like a team effort. There's a real emphasis put on this team assembling and how they work together in Batman's absence. I enjoy it, I just wish we saw more of it. I'm glad that we're establishing an extended Bat family, but I'd appreciate it even more if these characters were actually used in other DCAMU films. This was a one and done for them. And speaking of the Bat family, that brings me to one of the few things I'm not a fan of in this continuity. And it's that in this version of events, it seems like there's only ever been two Robins. The current Batman, Nightwing Dick Grayson, and Damian Wayne. That means no Jason Todd, no Tim Drake. They never existed. It feels like an off choice given that this is in fact an extended universe, and an appearance from them could have added to these stories and brought more star power and name recognition to them. These are beloved characters, their presence would probably be appreciated. But no, I guess not. No Reds, I guess. I don't know, I feel like they definitely could have figured out something for them to do. It's a bizarre choice to just willingly skip over two of the most famous sidekicks in all of Batman lore. To this movie's credit, it does juggle around a whole lot and manages to do it in a fluid manner. You have to remember that this movie is acting as a retelling of two separate comic book series, with two separate stories. It's introducing a brand new villain, two new heroes, bringing back the original bad from the first two films, Talia, making Nightwing a believable Batman in his absence, establishing a new team with new dynamics, following up and completing arcs that started in the last two movies, while also attempting to make and tell its own story. And that's a whole lot to do in an hour and 12 minutes. And to its credit, it manages to pull it off with style. The one thing that's pretty interesting to me about this set of films, though, is that despite the movies being labeled as Batman movies, Batman is mostly secondary in them. He's like the Doug in The Hangover of this series. He's promoted and marketed as being there, but he's not really a main character. If anything, I would say that these movies are more Damian Wayne movies than anything else. And surprisingly, I really enjoyed them. I think this is a good lesson to always give new things a chance, because these wound up being some of my all-time favorite Batman films ever made. Movies about my least favorite Batman character, mind you. The fight scenes are unsurprisingly pretty awesome. They're well thought out, entertaining sequences. And if you look away even for a moment, you're probably gonna miss something. I wouldn't say that this movie was as great as the ones that came before it, but it's pretty damn good in its own right. And it still feels like a solid sequel to the last installment. I'm somewhere in between like and love with this one, so I would definitely recommend checking it out for yourself if you haven't already. At the very least, it is absolutely worth the watch. And if you felt this video was worth the watch, and want to hear me talk about the next and final movie in this Batman lineup, let me know in the comment section below by leaving a comment saying,
We are not amused.
And with all that being said, I was your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso, and I thank you for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.
Even when you've disappeared, I can't get away from you.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time. Same bat channel.
Maybe this is all coming to an end.
Is this really the end?
This could be the end.
Dead end.
It's the end.
It's over.
It's done now. It's done.
Please, leave me in peace.